You lock the bedroom door. You turn off the overhead light. You pull the blankets up. It's just you and your partner, isolated from the rest of the world. Total privacy, total quiet. But for 99.9% of human history, that door didn't exist. That privacy didn't exist. If you wanted to be intimate 100,000 years ago, you didn't get a room. You got the ground. In the dark, surrounded by 20 other members of your tribe who could hear every breath you took. And somewhere just beyond the light of the campfire, a cave lion was listening too. Today, we treat romance like it's poetry. We have dating apps, candlelit dinners, and wedding rings. But in the Pleistocene epoch, intimacy wasn't a luxury. It was a brutal, high-stakes evolutionary gamble. Every time ancient humans mated, they were stepping onto a biological tightrope with zero safety net. And to survive it, our ancestors had to completely rewire the human brain, invent entirely new social emotions, and make a biological compromise so extreme that it almost drove our species to extinction. Let's start with the most obvious problem. Living in a prehistoric hunter-gatherer band meant your entire social universe consisted of roughly 30 to 50 people. You knew everyone. Every argument, every friendship, and every single intimate relationship happened in front of the entire group. There was no ghosting. There were no secrets. If you had a bad breakup, you still had to wake up and forage for tubers with that exact same person the very next morning. But a lack of privacy wasn't the biggest threat. The real terror of ancient human reproduction was the physical toll of what happened 9 months later. In 1960, a physical anthropologist named Sherwood Washburn coined a term that changed evolutionary biology. He called it the Obstetrical Dilemma. It's a clinical name for a biological nightmare. Millions of years ago, our ancestors stood up on 2 legs. To walk upright efficiently, the human pelvis had to radically change shape. The birth canal became narrower and much more convoluted. But at the exact same time, humans were getting smarter. Our brains were rapidly expanding. A narrowing birth canal and a rapidly expanding infant skull is a catastrophic combination. In the animal kingdom, most mammals are born ready to survive. A baby horse drops to the ground, stands up, and walks within an hour. A chimpanzee infant can cling to its mother's fur almost immediately. A human newborn? It can't walk. It can't talk. It can't even hold its own head up. Evolution was forced into a terrifying corner. To prevent the mother and child from dying during labor, human babies had to be born prematurely. Scientists call this secondary altriciality. Compared to other primates, human infants are essentially expelled from the womb while still in a fetal state of neurological development. They are utterly useless. They are biological disasters waiting to happen. This extreme helplessness created a cascading crisis for ancient humans. A prehistoric mother carrying a screaming, fragile infant could not run from predators. She could not easily gather enough calories to sustain herself and nurse a child for 3 years. She needed help. She needed the father to stay and provide. But here is where human biology clashed with mammalian history. The default setting for most mammals is promiscuity. Males mate, and they leave. So how did evolution trick the ancient human male into staying? In 2012, evolutionary biologist Sergey Gavrilets ran a series of complex mathematical models. He wanted to figure out how humans transitioned from a chaotic, promiscuous ape society to one built on strong, pair-bonded relationships. His findings revealed something fascinating. In a traditional tournament species, like gorillas, the biggest, most physically aggressive alpha males monopolize all the females. But human tribes were getting smarter. Low-ranking males realized they couldn't win physical fights against the alphas. So they completely changed the game. Instead of fighting for mating rights, they started provisioning, they hunted, gathered food, and offered it to specific females in exchange for exclusive mating. The females, desperate for the extra calories needed to keep their helpless, large-brained babies alive, accepted the deal. The providers replaced the fighters. Evolution rewarded the males who stayed and fed their children because those children actually survived to pass on their genetics. This was the birth of the human pair bond. But there was a massive flaw in this new system. If a provider male leaves the camp to hunt all day, how does he know the female isn't secretly mating with an alpha male while he's gone? If he's going to spend years of his life feeding and protecting a child, he needs absolute certainty that the child is his. Evolution's answer to this problem is perhaps the greatest biological deception in human history. In 1979, researchers Richard Alexander and Catherine Noonan proposed a hypothesis that shocked the anthropological world. It centers around a concept called concealed ovulation. Almost every female primate on Earth advertises exactly when she is fertile. Baboons and chimpanzees develop bright red, swollen tissue. They release overwhelming pheromones. Every male in the area knows precisely when she is capable of getting pregnant, but human females did something completely unprecedented. They hid it. All visual and behavioral cues of ovulation completely vanished. In fact, the signs became so perfectly hidden that human females didn't even consciously know when they were ovulating themselves. Why would evolution hide fertility? Because it forced the male to stay. If a male chimpanzee knows exactly when a female is fertile, he mates with her for a few days, and then he leaves to find someone else. But if an ancient human male had absolutely no idea when his partner could get pregnant, he had to mate with her constantly. He couldn't leave. He had to stay nearby, guard his relationship, and invest his time entirely into one female to ensure his genetics were passed on. This invisible biological shift completely rewired the human brain. It invented romantic jealousy. It created the foundation for the modern family. But while early humans were figuring out how to bond with each other, they ran into a completely different problem. Because as they eventually migrated out of Africa, they realized they weren't the only humans on the planet. When Homo sapiens reached the freezing landscapes of Europe and Asia, they encountered the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. For decades, scientists debated what happened when these species met in the wild. Did we fight them? Did we avoid them? Then, modern science mapped the human genome, and the truth was undeniably clear. We didn't just fight them, we mated with them. Almost every living person of Eurasian descent carries between 1% to 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genome today. But this wasn't just a prehistoric scandal, it was an evolutionary shortcut that literally saved the human race. When Homo sapiens arrived in Europe, they were exposed to a whole new world of deadly pathogens, viruses, and bacteria they had absolutely zero immunity against. The Neanderthals, however, had been living there for 200,000 years. Their immune systems had already fought these diseases and adapted. In 2016, geneticists Lluis Quintana-Murci and Janet Kelso published landmark studies in the American Journal of Human Genetics. They discovered that interbreeding with Neanderthals and Denisovans introduced archaic variants of toll-like receptor, or TLR, genes into the modern human genome. These genes sit on the surface of your cells and act like a highly sensitive alarm system, detecting and responding to foreign bacteria, fungi, and parasites. By mating with Neanderthals, our ancestors essentially downloaded a software update for their immune system. We borrowed their genetic armor to survive environments that should have wiped us out completely, but evolution always extracts a toll. The archaic TLR genes we inherited were hyperreactive. They were brilliant at attacking ancient, lethal pathogens. But today, in our relatively clean modern world, that ancient alarm system is still running on high alert. It overreacts to completely harmless things. Dust, pet dander, pollen. The reason your eyes water in the spring, the reason you suffer from seasonal allergies, is a direct genetic hangover from a romantic encounter your ancestor had with a Neanderthal 50,000 years ago. So think about your bedroom again. The locked door, the dim lights, the total privacy. The modern rituals of attraction feel completely new, but the machinery running beneath them is ancient. You are the product of an impossible biological compromise. You pair bond because millions of years ago, human babies were born too helpless to survive alone. You feel jealousy because ancestral males needed to aggressively guard their genetic investment. You fall in love because evolution needed a chemical trick to keep two exhausted parents from abandoning each other in the wilderness. And hiding in your blood, in the very cells that protect you from disease, is the ghostly DNA of an entirely different human species. We like to think of romance as something poetic, something found in movies, songs, and sonnets. But the truth is much darker, and honestly, much more beautiful. Intimacy wasn't an escape from the brutal prehistoric world. It was the only way we survived it. New videos every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.